Most people trust too quickly because they are listening to what someone says instead of watching what that person repeatedly does. They hear confidence and assume character. They see kindness and assume loyalty. They hear a convincing story and assume honesty. But words are easy. Anyone can choose the right words when they want something from you. Character is different. Character appears when there is nothing to gain, when someone is frustrated, when their patience is tested, when they are told no, and when nobody important is watching. If you want to read people before you trust them, stop trying to decode every facial expression and start studying patterns. A single moment can be misleading. A pattern is much harder to fake. Someone may be incredibly charming during your first conversation. They may compliment you, agree with everything you say, laugh at your jokes, and make you feel like you've known them for years. That feeling can be powerful, but don't confuse instant comfort with genuine trust. Some people are naturally charismatic. Others have learned exactly how to make people feel important. Neither one tells you what kind of person they will be when the relationship becomes inconvenient. Time reveals what charm hides. Watch what happens when they don't get their way. Watch how they speak to people who cannot help them. Watch how they treat employees, strangers, family members, and old friends. Watch whether they take responsibility when something goes wrong or immediately search for someone else to blame. These details matter because people eventually behave according to their real values. A person who constantly talks about loyalty but betrays every friend eventually reveals the truth. A person who talks about honesty but changes their story whenever consequences appear reveals the truth. A person who presents themselves as respectful but becomes cruel whenever they feel powerful reveals the truth. You don't need to confront them. You don't need to expose them. You simply need to remember what you observed. This is where patience becomes one of your greatest advantages. You don't have to decide immediately whether someone is good or bad. You can remain friendly while keeping your trust limited. You can enjoy a conversation without handing someone your secrets. You can appreciate someone's personality without assuming you understand their character. Think of trust as something that should grow with evidence. At the beginning, give people ordinary access. Let them talk. Let them behave. Let them reveal themselves. Don't rush to fill in the gaps with your imagination, because sometimes we don't trust the person in front of us. We trust the person we hope they are, and that is where people get hurt. You see potential and ignore behavior. You notice their good moments and explain away the bad ones. You tell yourself they're stressed, misunderstood, damaged, or simply having a difficult period. Maybe that's true, but explanations do not erase patterns. Compassion is valuable. So is discernment. You can understand why someone behaves badly without giving them permission to treat you badly. And you can recognize someone's good qualities without giving them unlimited access to your life. This is especially important when someone constantly makes promises about who they will become. Don't build trust around future potential. Watch what they consistently do now. If someone says they are disciplined, watch their habits. If they say they are loyal, watch how they speak about absent friends. If they say they respect boundaries, give them a small boundary and observe their reaction. If they say they value honesty, notice what happens when telling the truth becomes uncomfortable. People reveal themselves through contradictions, and the more you pay attention, the less you need to guess. You begin noticing who becomes generous when there is nothing to gain, who remains respectful when angry, who admits mistakes without being forced, who keeps private information private, and who treats relationships as mutual rather than transactional. That is how you start reading people. Not by becoming suspicious of everyone, not by assuming everyone has hidden motives, but by becoming patient enough to let behavior speak before trust does. Because the goal isn't to find reasons not to trust people. The goal is to stop giving trust before people have given you a reason to. And once you learn to watch patterns instead of being hypnotized by words, you become much harder to deceive and much wiser about who you allow into your life. One of the fastest ways to understand someone's character is to watch what happens when you stop giving them exactly what they want, not through games, not through manipulation, and not by deliberately provoking them. Simply establish a normal boundary and pay attention to what follows, because a person's reaction to your no can reveal more than their reaction to your yes. When you say yes, almost everyone can appear pleasant. You give them your time, attention, agreement, help, or approval, and there is very little pressure on the relationship. But the moment you say no, the situation changes. Now they have to decide whether they respect you as a person or only value what they can receive from you. This is why boundaries are so revealing. Imagine someone asks you for a favor. You genuinely cannot do it, so you calmly say, "I can't this time." A healthy person may be disappointed, but they understand. They might say, "No problem," and continue treating you normally. But someone who feels entitled to your attention may react differently. They may become cold. They may guilt trip you. They may say, "I thought you were my friend." They may suddenly question your character. They may remind you of everything they've done for you. They may pressure you until you change your answer. Pay attention. The issue isn't that they wanted something from you. That's normal. The issue is whether they believe you are allowed to refuse. There is a major difference between disappointment and disrespect. A person can be disappointed by your boundary and still respect it. A manipulative person may treat your boundary as an obstacle that must be defeated, and that tells you something important. You don't need to argue with them about it. You don't need to give a psychological lecture. You don't even need to label them. Just observe. This is where many people make a mistake. They become so afraid of conflict that they immediately soften their boundaries. They say no, then spend 10 minutes explaining why. They apologize repeatedly. They offer alternatives they don't actually want to offer. Eventually, they turn a simple boundary into a negotiation. Don't do that. A boundary doesn't become more valid because you provide a longer explanation. Sometimes "I can't" is enough. Sometimes "I'm not comfortable with that" is enough. Sometimes "No, I'm not available" is enough. The response you receive afterward is information. If someone accepts your answer, that's information. If they repeatedly pressure you, that's information. If they become insulting, that's information. If they suddenly withdraw affection because you refuse them, that's information. And remember, one reaction doesn't automatically define someone's entire character. People can have bad days. They can misunderstand. They can react emotionally and later recognize their mistake. That's why you watch patterns. If someone reacts badly once, notice it. If they repeatedly punish you whenever you establish boundaries, believe the pattern. The goal isn't to test people like they're suspects in an investigation. It's simply to stop ignoring the evidence that naturally appears in ordinary relationships. Start with small boundaries. Don't lend something you aren't comfortable lending. Don't answer a message immediately if you're busy. Don't agree to plans you genuinely don't want. Don't reveal information just because someone demands it. Don't change your decision because someone becomes disappointed. Then observe who respects your time, who respects your privacy, who can disagree without attacking you, who can hear no without turning the situation into a personal battle. Those people are giving you evidence that they understand mutual respect. And there is another powerful lesson here. The people who respect your boundaries may actually become more trustworthy because they understand that your relationship doesn't require control. They don't need unlimited access to you. They don't need constant agreement. They don't need you to sacrifice yourself to prove loyalty. They understand that two people can care about each other. and still have separate limits. That is the kind of relationship where trust can grow, because trust isn't created by saying yes to everything. Trust is created when both people discover that the other person can be honest without being punished for it. So stop being afraid of the information your boundaries reveal. A boundary doesn't destroy a healthy relationship. It exposes whether the relationship was healthy in the first place. And when you learn to watch how people respond to your no, you stop guessing who respects you. You start seeing it. There is a version of a person that only appears when life becomes uncomfortable. When everything is going well, almost anyone can look patient, generous, confident, and reasonable. But pressure removes the performance. It forces people to respond from instinct, and those instincts can reveal more about character than years of pleasant conversation. If you want to understand someone before trusting them deeply, don't only watch how they behave when life is easy. Watch what happens when something goes wrong. Watch them when they're stressed. Watch them when they're criticized. Watch them when they lose control of a situation. Watch them when someone disagrees with them. Watch them when they make a mistake. Because pressure doesn't always create a person's character. Very often, it exposes what was already there. Imagine someone who appears calm and respectful until they are challenged. The moment someone disagrees with them, their voice changes. They become defensive. They interrupt. They insult. They suddenly need to win. Don't ignore that transformation. It tells you something. Or imagine someone who constantly describes themselves as a victim. Every failed relationship was someone else's fault. Every mistake was caused by another person. Every conflict happened because everyone else misunderstood them. Listen carefully. A person who can never take responsibility will eventually make you responsible for their problems. That doesn't mean you should judge someone for struggling. Everyone has difficult periods. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone becomes emotional sometimes. The important question is what happens afterward. Do they reflect? Do they apologize? Do they accept responsibility? Do they change their behavior? Or do they repeat the same pattern and create another explanation? That difference is enormous. Accountability is one of the clearest signs of emotional maturity. A person who can say, "I was wrong," is giving you valuable information. A person who can say, "I handled that badly," is showing you that conflict doesn't have to become destruction. A person who can receive criticism without immediately attacking the person giving it demonstrates internal stability. You should also watch how someone behaves when they feel embarrassed. Embarrassment can reveal insecurity very quickly. Some people can laugh at themselves. Others immediately search for someone to blame. Some people become quiet and reflect. Others become aggressive because they cannot tolerate feeling exposed. Again, you're not looking for perfection. You're looking for patterns. And pressure can reveal another important quality. How someone treats people who have less power than they do. Watch someone when they are dealing with a waiter, a junior employee, a stranger, or someone who cannot offer them anything. If they are charming toward powerful people, but disrespectful toward everyone beneath them, pay attention. That behavior reveals that their kindness may be conditional. Real character tends to remain consistent across situations. The person who respects you should also understand that other people deserve basic dignity. And then watch what happens when they don't get what they want. Do they negotiate respectfully? Do they become controlling? Do they threaten? Do they withdraw affection? Do they create guilt? Do they punish people emotionally? These reactions can tell you how someone handles frustration and power. You don't need to confront every behavior you notice. Sometimes observation is enough. The mistake is allowing one impressive quality to blind you to everything else. Someone can be intelligent and still be dishonest. Someone can be charming and still be unreliable. Someone can be generous and still be controlling. Someone can be successful and still treat people terribly. Never let one attractive trait convince you that you understand the whole person. People are complicated. That is why you watch them across different situations and over time. Trust should be based on repeated evidence, not isolated moments. If someone remains respectful when frustrated, accountable when wrong, calm when challenged, and consistent when nobody is watching, those are meaningful signals. And if someone repeatedly becomes cruel under pressure, refuses responsibility, or needs to control every situation, believe what you're seeing. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to expose them. You simply have to adjust how much access you give them. Because pressure reveals the difference between someone's image and their character. And when you learn to watch people under pressure, you stop trusting the version they perform for you and start understanding the person they actually become when the performance disappears. Another powerful way to understand someone is to listen to how they talk about people who aren't in the room. You can learn a surprising amount about a person's character by paying attention to the stories they tell, the people they constantly criticize, and the secrets they casually reveal. Because the way someone talks about others is often a preview of how they will eventually talk about you. Imagine meeting someone who spends every conversation telling you how terrible their friends are. Every former partner was crazy. Every coworker was jealous. Every person who disagreed with them was fake. At first, you might feel special because they are trusting you with all these stories. But slow down. Ask yourself a simple question. If they speak about everyone this way when those people are absent, what happens when you are the one who isn't there? This doesn't mean you should automatically distrust someone because they complain. People have real problems, and sometimes they need to talk about them. The important thing is the pattern, the tone, and the responsibility they take. Do they describe every conflict as someone else's fault? Do they expose private information that was trusted to them? Do they seem entertained by other people's failures? Do they constantly compare themselves with others? Do they need to make someone else look small to feel important? These details reveal something. A mature person can describe a conflict without turning the other person into a monster. They can admit, we both handled things badly. They can recognize someone's good qualities even when the relationship ends. They don't need to destroy someone's reputation simply because the relationship didn't work. That ability matters because one day you may disagree with them. And if their normal response to disagreement is character assassination, you should know that before you give them deep access to your life. Pay attention to gossip too. Gossip can feel harmless because it often arrives disguised as information. I probably shouldn't tell you this, but those words should make you pause. If someone regularly tells you secrets that were never theirs to share, don't assume you're receiving special trust. You may simply be witnessing their inability to protect someone else's privacy. And remember this: someone who casually exposes another person's private life may eventually expose yours. Trustworthy people understand that not every piece of information needs an audience. They know when something is private. They know when a story isn't theirs to tell. They don't turn other people's pain into entertainment. They don't use secrets as social currency. This is especially important when someone constantly tells you how loyal they are. Don't focus only on the claim. Watch their behavior. Do they protect the reputation of absent friends? Do they speak respectfully about people who can no longer benefit them? Do they keep confidential information confidential? Do they criticize people privately, but praise them publicly? Or do they maintain basic consistency? These patterns matter more than declaration. There is also something revealing about how people talk about those who are successful. Some people can admire another person's success without feeling personally threatened. Others immediately minimize it. They got lucky. They don't deserve it. They probably cheated. They just had connections. Sometimes those explanations are true, but when someone consistently responds to other people's success with bitterness, jealousy, or contempt, it tells you something about their internal world. Now watch how they talk about people who are struggling. Do they show compassion? Or do they mock weakness because they believe weakness makes someone worthless? A person's attitude toward both success and vulnerability can reveal their values. You don't need to analyze every sentence like a detective. Simply listen. Listen to what they praise. Listen to what they mock. Listen to what they forgive. Listen to what they cannot tolerate. Listen to who they blame. Listen to whether their stories contain accountability or endless excuses. Over time, you will begin seeing patterns that words alone could never reveal. And this is why becoming a better observer is so important. You don't need to interrogate people to understand them. Give them space to talk. Most people reveal themselves when they feel comfortable enough to stop performing. Let conversations breathe. Don't rush to fill every silence. Don't constantly redirect attention toward yourself. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply listen and remember, because people tell you who they are in the stories they repeat. They reveal their values through the people they admire. They reveal their insecurity through the people they attack, and they reveal their loyalty through the secrets they protect. So listen carefully, not to judge everyone, but to understand who deserves deeper trust. Because before you give someone access to your private world, pay attention to how they handle everyone else's. Trust should never be an all-or-nothing decision. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that they must either completely trust someone or completely distrust them. But real trust doesn't work that way. Trust can have levels, and those levels should be earned through consistent behavior. You don't need to hand someone your deepest secrets after one good conversation. You don't need to reveal everything about yourself simply because someone makes you feel comfortable. And you certainly don't need to give someone complete access to your life before you've had enough time to understand their character. Let trust grow slowly. Think of it like building a bridge. You don't construct the entire bridge in one night and hope it holds. You build it piece by piece, checking every part as you go. Trust works the same way. Every consistent action adds another piece. Every contradiction makes you slow down and look more carefully. Start with ordinary things. Notice whether they keep simple promises. If they say they'll call, do they? If they agree to meet at a certain time, do they respect it? If they make a mistake, do they admit it? If you share something small in private, do they protect it? If you disagree with them, can the conversation remain respectful? These aren't games. They are ordinary moments that naturally reveal character, and you don't need to manufacture situations to test someone. Life will create enough opportunities on its own. Someone will eventually be disappointed. Someone will eventually make a mistake. Someone will eventually disagree with you. Someone will eventually have the opportunity to benefit at your expense. Those moments provide information. The important thing is that you don't rush to interpret everything emotionally. If someone forgets something once, that doesn't automatically make them dishonest. If someone becomes frustrated once, that doesn't automatically make them dangerous. If someone makes a mistake, you don't need to immediately remove them from your life. Watch what happens next. Do they correct themselves? Do they apologize? Do they repeat the behavior? Do they become defensive when the issue is mentioned? Do their actions eventually match their words? That is where trust becomes clearer. You can also practice sharing information gradually. You don't need to tell someone your deepest fears, private struggles, financial details, or personal history immediately. Give people ordinary information first and observe how they handle it. If they respect small confidences, that becomes evidence If they turn everything into gossip, that becomes evidence too. The same principle applies to your time and energy. Give someone a reasonable opportunity to show consistency before making them central to your life. This protects you from one of the most dangerous mistakes in relationships: confusing emotional intensity with trust. Someone can make you feel deeply connected within days and still be a stranger when it comes to character. Chemistry is not evidence. Attention is not evidence. Compliments are not evidence. Promises are not evidence. Consistency is evidence. Accountability is evidence. Respect is evidence. And time gives you the opportunity to collect that evidence. This doesn't mean becoming paranoid. You shouldn't walk through life assuming everyone is secretly trying to hurt you. That mindset will destroy your ability to form genuine relationships. Instead, become observant without becoming suspicious. Give people opportunities to prove themselves. Let them earn deeper access naturally, and understand that trust should increase when evidence increases. If someone repeatedly shows honesty, respect, reliability, and accountability, you can gradually open the door further. If someone repeatedly shows manipulation, disrespect, dishonesty, or inconsistency, you don't need to wait until the damage becomes enormous before stepping back. You can simply reduce access. That's not cruelty, that's discernment. And remember, trust isn't only about deciding whether someone is trustworthy. It's also about deciding what level of trust is appropriate. Someone can be a good person and still not be the right person to know your deepest secrets. Someone can be enjoyable company and still not be someone you should depend on during a crisis. Someone can be talented and still be unreliable. Someone can be charming and still lack emotional maturity. Different relationships require different levels of access. Once you understand this, you stop rushing intimacy. You stop believing that closeness must happen immediately. You stop confusing someone's interest in you with proof of their character, and you give the most valuable thing of all: time. The opportunity to reveal what people cannot maintain forever. Let people earn your trust through patterns, not promises, and you will become far wiser about who deserves access to your life. The final lesson is the one that protects you from the greatest mistake of all: trusting someone's potential more than their pattern. You can spend years believing someone will eventually become honest, loyal, respectful, responsible, or emotionally mature. You can see their good moments and imagine that those moments represent who they truly are, while treating everything negative as an exception. But trust should be built around evidence, not imagination. There is a difference between seeing potential in someone and trusting their character. You can believe that a person has the ability to change without giving them the same level of access you would give someone who has already changed. That distinction can save you from enormous disappointment. Maybe someone tells you they are going to become more responsible. Listen to the promise, but watch what happens afterward. Maybe someone says they are going to stop lying. Don't build trust around the announcement. Watch whether their behavior becomes more honest when telling the truth becomes uncomfortable. Maybe someone says they care about you. Don't measure that only by how emotional their words sound. Watch whether their actions consistently demonstrate consideration, respect, and reliability. Words can describe potential. Answers demonstrate character. This is why patterns matter so much. If someone repeatedly breaks promises, you don't need to keep treating every new promise as if it were the first one. If someone repeatedly violates your boundaries, don't let one apology erase months of behavior. If someone repeatedly blames everyone else for their problems, don't assume that eventually they will suddenly become accountable without evidence of change. Forgiveness and trust are not the same thing. You can forgive someone and still keep boundaries. You can understand someone's struggles and still refuse to become responsible for them. You can wish someone well and still decide that they no longer deserve access to certain parts of your life, that is not bitterness, that is wisdom. And this is where you must become honest with yourself. Sometimes we ignore evidence because accepting it would force us to make a difficult decision. You know someone isn't reliable, but you keep trusting them because you don't want to lose the relationship. You know someone constantly disrespects you, but you keep making excuses because you remember their good side. You know someone repeatedly manipulates situations, but you tell yourself that they are simply misunderstood. You are not protecting the relationship anymore. You are protecting the story you created about the relationship. Let the evidence speak. If someone's actions consistently match their words, trust can grow. If their actions consistently contradict their words, trust should decrease. It really can be that simple. You don't need to diagnose people. You don't need to label them as good or bad. You don't need to become obsessed with hidden motives. You only need to recognize what their behavior repeatedly tells you. And remember that people can change. This is important. Reading people isn't about permanently judging them based on one mistake. Genuine change is possible. But real change has evidence. It looks like different behavior over time. It looks like accountability without excuses. It looks like fewer repeated mistakes. It looks like respect for boundaries. It looks like consistency when nobody is watching. If someone truly changes, you don't have to force yourself to believe it. Their behavior will eventually make it visible. That is why patience is so powerful. You don't have to decide everything today. You can observe. You can wait. You can listen. You can adjust access as new information appears. The people you trust deeply should be people whose patterns make you feel secure, not people whose potential requires you to constantly hope, excuse, and rationalize. And this changes the way you approach relationships. You stop asking, "Do I like this person?" You start asking, "What does this person's behavior consistently show me?" You stop asking, "What could they become?" You start asking, "Who are they repeatedly choosing to be?" You stop being hypnotized by chemistry, charm, promises, and emotional intensity. You start respecting evidence. That is the real skill of reading people. Not becoming cynical, not assuming everyone is dangerous, not looking for flaws in everyone you meet. Simply becoming patient enough to let character reveal itself. Because when you trust patterns instead of potential, you protect your peace without closing your heart. You remain open to genuine people, but you stop handing out trust before it has been earned. And once you learn to trust evidence, you don't need to fear being fooled. You know how to watch, wait, and choose wisely.